also to my city graduates, I just want you to know that we are going to be checking the licenses of all of your team members, because you had some grown ass men out there on Saturday, but we're not going to keep talking about that. But what we do with our Mastermind Mondays, one of the things that we're trying to do, we're building a culture and trying to make sure that we're building a culture in our community where black people are helping black people solve problems. That's why we come together. So we have a situation like now we have roughly 15 men in the room, and we want 15 answers on a challenge that one of our brothers had. And what we do is we go around the room during our mastermind session, and everybody can bring a challenge to the table, and they'll get an answer from every person here. Some of which you may have heard before, some of which you may have not. Some of which are good, some of which are not. But at the end of the day, we're all getting together to try to solve problems. And something that somebody says today is going to be useful for someone else in this room, even if it's not useful to you. So, with that being said, we kind of gear this towards business and entrepreneurship, mainly because, in our opinion, piggyback off from what the brother Marcel was saying, was that a lot of times we need help. We're an organization that's geared towards helping the community, but a lot of times the community that we need to help first is the one sitting right in your face. And I'm gonna challenge every person here to take this type of idea and take this type of concept to your homes. I'm a big person. I don't try to organize 45 million black people. It's impossible. But when I tell you that everybody in here can organize 4 to 5 black people right in your house. So, we can mastermind just with a few people, and I just try to set the stage for that, to put people in a mindset that that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to establish a framework and a model that can be used in groups of 20, and in groups of 5, and in groups of 3, and groups of 500. So we want to just be in a habit and a culture of helping each other solve problems. So I want to ask everybody to just kind of reflect on something that's going on in your business right now, something that you may want to see happen, or something that may have happened all the time and happened already, and you might need somebody to just sound off on it, somebody to just bounce an idea off of it in a direction that you're trying to go, or something that you're trying to repair, or something that you're even trying to grow. So as you think about that, I want anybody in here, we just want to deal with one person a day. So if anybody in here has any challenge whatsoever that might be going on from an entrepreneurship standpoint or business standpoint, does anybody have a challenge or something like that they can deal with?
Nobody raising their hand?
Okay.
Why you ain't raise your hand?
All right, so y'all know my company provides STEAM integration services, and with STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We integrate that in schools. And what I'm noticing with this younger generation, it's about ego. So I feel like it's a strong balance in our culture, specifically black men, where purpose and ego on two different sides of the balance beam. I feel like those of us that are 35 and older, we've always moved with some sense of purpose. Where I feel like some of the young kings I'm reaching out to and trying to pour into now, it's about ego. It's about what they're going to look like if I do this, what they look like. So my challenge is, as black men, how do we teach purpose over ego? That makes sense?
Yeah. How do we teach purpose over ego?
Not teach it, but
how you
instill to move with purpose and not to move with what your ego says. That's my challenge.
Thanks. I hope everybody's clear about what that was, and we may even come back to it, but we're just going to just go around the room, and we'll start right here with Joe, and we'll just come on around the room, and everybody just sound off and give some type of idea towards how do we instill purpose, and over ego.
I think if you could find a way to get them to understand that they can have a more productive life, if they're motivated by purpose, you're going to have to find a way to touch one or two of them to pull a heartstring. Everybody says, when I get rich, I'm going to do this for my mama. So their mama is their purpose. And you may, I used to go exercise and ask them, you know, what do you want to, what would you like to have when you're 25? Now work backwards. What do you need right now in order to get that? That now becomes their purpose.
So create a roadmap to show our purpose is important.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Who kn- That be you. You looking around.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
that
just
be you.
making sure I don't jump in front of someone.
All right.
I like the way that Joe set me up because it really speaks to something that I am concerned with also. Critical thinking. It's being diminished. It's almost non-existent. So that critical thinking, assessing what's important to me and how am I going to achieve what's important to me. So when you don't think about things critically and assess what's actually going to benefit you, how you're going to get there, and what impact it has, then you're not as driven that for your purpose. You're really feeding that ego portion because like I'm just going to do something. So if they stop and assess critically and think about what they are actually hoping to do, then that'll become important. And that's paramountly important because you have to also have a base of honor in your upbringing and whatnot. If that's not there, hopefully the critical thinking can shore that up, but those two I think need to work together. So pushing critical thinking and with the focus of honor of what you're doing because you should honor your family, yourself, and your efforts. You know, something that's productive.
Let's go ahead back to Chris.
Okay.
I would ask them, do they understand perception? A lot of people look at it and they see what they see on TV and think that's what's good. But, ask them about perception.
This is me.
What they think of Jesus is, and you explain to them what what's supposed to be. When you walk into a room, how you carry yourself, what you say, what you look like, and all that stuff. Maybe something like that you talk about.
To clarify, you're trying to instill in them your purpose of your company or just first in general?
And purpose in general. Like, see, this goes along with some of the street guys I know. Like the older street guys, it's like in their 40s, 35. Like, I used to reach out to them and get some of them to come to college to change their life. But they moved with purpose though. Like the block was still a place where they took care of the grandma. Like they might have paid for funerals. Like it was purpose, right? Even though I didn't agree with the product they were selling, but they were still great businessmen and they moved with purpose. But this younger generation, it's about being the man. And I don't know how to really communicate that all the time to reach to whether you're 8 or 80. Like it's still not age focused. It's more about seeing purpose in people and instilling that purpose without people choosing to feed their ego.
I think it's a challenge of teaching them how, to an extent you have to feed into the ego, but show them how that purpose feeds into the ego. So it's almost like, say like you talking to somebody young, like you talked last night, the young rapper from Edison Village. He goes to the community to help build some brand from a business perspective. Now in the beginning he may not understand the passion behind it, but now as he draws them in to try to build his brand, eventually make that jump.
Okay, so the carrot is the ego to instill the.
Sometimes you gotta meet people where they are first.
Okay.
Trick them, bring them in.
Okay.
And once they end, then you can kind of guide them from there. So kind of like, okay, how do I use their ego to rap to get them there? You know what I'm saying? So that's how I and you say a lot of these kids, the millennials got a whole different mindset. They're social media, it's
You got instant access to everything.
access, so you kind of got to meet them where they are, and then bring them in. So that's how it is.
I'm a firm believer. I use sports and sports analogies to try to communicate with a lot of people, especially with what I go through. One of the things I would say was the ESPN 30 for 30 break it down, let them see it. Let them see where ego has caused a lot of millionaires or athletes who had access to millions lost their lives, their platforms, the fame that they once had. They once, whether it was a 1 year or 10-year career. And look where they are now. Your ego can destroy you if you don't have your vision. Another thing again, you can say youth sports analogies. A lot of people, especially the young ones, they look up to the Allen Iversons, the Antoine Walkers. Some of them made proper decisions and some of them didn't. You can be that next person.
So I think it's a situation where it's not the ego that's the problem. It's the energy that is surrounded around the ego. So, because when a kid is arrogant, they know everything. It's because of lack of trust. Now I can only say that from personal experience, right? When I was a kid, I knew everything until I realized I didn't know anything. And the only reason why I realized I didn't know anything is because I learned to trust other people. Then I was able to learn more. So I think it's a situation where if you have a kid who has this ego, who fits this profile, then it's the why. Why don't they trust people? And why do they feel like they need to do everything themselves, or it needs to be just about them because they feel like they won't let themselves down? That's the challenge. If you can find what that is, and a lot of it is gonna stem back to their father. You see what I'm saying? So if they don't have, because if all the people who you're probably talking about probably don't have fathers at home. So they was the only man around. So they had to do things on their own. And so one of the things that helped me was when somebody told me, hey, if you want to know where you're going to be in 10 years, look at somebody who's doing exactly what you're doing that's 10 years older. And once I realized, you know what, I'm hustling, I'm trying to make as much money as possible, and somebody who is 32 years old that's hustling, trying to make as much money as possible, is still trying to make as much money as possible. And then my cousin told me this one thing was, no matter how much money you make, it's going to find a reason to leave you. So once I came to terms to that, then that was no longer my focus. And then I was able to be opened up to learn more. And then that's when I learned a whole lot. So that's what I think.
Okay, so you earn trust.
All right, in a nutshell, you gotta be the island, not the waves. In that, you gotta realize that masculinity.
You gotta repeat that, because I don't know if anybody caught that. That was deep right there.
Be the island, not the waves. What we're dealing with nowadays, not only in your specific scenario, but as an organization with masculinity in general, is that the definition of it is varying. So you're dealing with, like you mentioned, kids from yesteryear, or adults and stuff like that. As kids or young men nowadays are a bit more emotional. Their decisions are a bit more erratic than kids of yesterday. So as an example, or as an elder, you have to just be firm in your example, firm in your communication, and you got to also realize that you mentioned instant gratification, and that kids are more intelligent today than at any other point in civilization. So the reason why they are disconnected is because they're smart. They can see what's BS and what's not, and that's where people go their different ways. There's some solutions there where active listening is a big part of it, and just letting kids, you can't save kids, you can empower them to reach their own conclusions and decisions. And once they reach that point, you pair them with either a mentor or a case study, or just a bit of advice in that moment where it gives them something to go another way. I mean, in my teaching martial arts, and especially growing up, I didn't listen to anybody. You couldn't tell me anything. I was going to be a pro athlete, all these different things. And it wasn't until, again, I was the waves. I was all over the place. But it wasn't until I ran into role models who were like, okay, you can do this, but it's going to stop once you reach me. Then that respect factor comes in, and I can learn from that. And a lot of kids are like that because parents are breaking their contracts with kids and their agreements. Their environment is in many cases without hope, or even if they are growing up in a stable situation, their friends might not be. And they don't have as many role models as we did. My dad could have been whatever, but I had uncles and this person over here to keep me on that right road. So you got to realize who you're dealing with as far as kids in general nowadays, but also just listen and let them talk through it because they're smarter than most people give them credit for. So let them reach the conclusion.
Analog childhood, as we all did, and being a person that graduated in the late 90s, having a digital adulthood and analog childhood allows me to be relatable. But on the same token, purpose is what I'm seeing is missing. That's where a lot of my work goes have to be repeatable because they have so many negative influences on Instagram and social media and television that says this is cool to do.
But here's the thing, you gotta kind of take a step back from what you're doing and realize that you putting together the program is the purpose in itself. People can say, well, I can see you dressed up and things like that, but people can see that you're a real guy, and kids can see through that. And so just having that is an example in itself that you don't have to tell somebody. What's understood doesn't need to be said. And kids understand a lot more than we often give them credit for. So.
I mean, you got to look at, like when you come to a BPM meeting, right? I don't know about y'all, but I feel like when I first came to a BPM meeting, it was like I'm able to be close to a black executive. And then you're able to learn from them, and you're able to, see what they tick, see what makes them tick, which makes that person real, which makes that level obtainable now. You see what I'm saying? So before, I could say, okay, I wanted to be an executive, but I didn't have a roadmap. But when I came to BPM and I was able to come and be exposed to a lot of executives, I was able to see multiple roadmaps, which made it seem possible. And so a lot of these kids, what they're shown is they're not shown what they feel is possible. So they're just going for what they know.
Let's take that a step further. It's like when my first BPM meeting, I felt like it was like the Justice League or something. It's like, okay, what is behind this that makes everyone, let's say, dress up an extra knot, or it was like classes, and just think about it. Where do we come together in fellowship that isn't church, or in this? So it's a unique thing. Yeah. So it's that respect factor, and with kids, again, it's just being an example. It goes a lot further than because it's like they see what you do, not necessarily what you try to preach to them. They see everything, they watch everything, because you're the blueprint, whether you realize it or not, for them to pattern themselves out. That's how it works.
What you think, Willie?
So a lot of words came to mind as we think about purpose over ego. Meet them where they are, right? Consistency, patience, and then awareness. I think if we can have examples as you spend time with each of those persons, just use the environment, the situation that you're in, to allow them to become aware. Don't preach to them. Ask a lot of questions. You got to pull things out of them. Meet them where they are. Be consistent. Be patient, and just show that you have belief in them. And then it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So that's why consistency is important. Showing belief in them is important. Meeting them where they are, I believe, is important. And over time, I know you will see a change.
Thank you.
So, in my experience, a good question is better than a great answer. Jesus talked in parables, and so really think through with each opportunity that presents itself. Be prepared to ask good questions, and you know you can communicate more in questions than answers.
That creates the bond too. You're not talking to people when you ask a question. It shows concern.
When you are in an environment with hyper-masculated males, males who define maleness based upon physicality or bravado, it is very valuable to ask questions which give them space to understand that you are respecting their space, and two, for them to begin to help themselves define themselves within that breach. You know, good questions over great answers.
Lee, you can wrap it up.
Well, I think that if one of us, say one child, is big, there are so many influences around it, particularly TV, computer, the kids, the music. They have so many other outside influences that you have to be a model for this kid to get his trust and let him know and believe that you are going to help him. And if you can save this kid, then you've done a lot. It's not like Marcel was over there just speaking. He was saying he could talk about this on a broad scale, but he wanted to meet with you personally to get the message all the way across. So when you meet with this child personally and you get him to recognize that you have his interest at heart, then the child is like going to be responsive to that. So I'm like thinking that if we have 60 or 70 members in this organization, and each one of us were able to pick out one kid and bring him into a good life, then there will be 60 or 70 kids. So we focus individually with the kids, and if we can go to the schools and read to all the kids, and we can talk to the kids and show them what the deal is, but singling a kid out that you feel that you can connect with, I think is an ideal way to really make these interesting kids come into a good adulthood.
Don't try to save the world. Just focus one at a time.
You got anything, Lewis?
I do. So when I think of ego, I think of like. So let me back up for a second. I went to Gaithersburg High School, right? Graduated class of '89. I went to our homecoming like 3 weeks ago. I thought I had a great time. I went to City Poly homecoming. I was like, this is incredible. This is incredible to see all these people out here just having a good time. Like, I get the rivalry, I get it. Like, due to my job, I kept saying I'm going to the City Poly game. He kept saying Poly City. And he would not even entertain my conversation until I said Poly City. You know what I'm saying? So, big ups on that.
Yes.
Big ups for that whole City Poly City. That's hot. But when I think of ego, I think of like my man Jason from I went to Tuskegee as well. He used to always say, if there were no females on this earth, that dudes wouldn't care how we dressed. We wouldn't be getting haircuts. We wouldn't be getting big cars. We wouldn't be driving fancy cars. We wouldn't be getting big houses. And I used to always argue him up and down, like, no, I dress like this because I want to look good. He's like, nah, son, You get your hair cut, you wear nice clothes, you aspire to do nice things for females. And vice versa. Chicks wear tight pants, they get their nails done. He's like, you know how uncomfortable it is for chicks to wear high heels? They do that for us. So I think that is where the ego part comes in. When you think about your ego, you think you want to be accepted. It's how you perceive yourself. So I think when it was ego versus what was the other one? Purpose. When you think of your purpose, man, I think a lot of times when I'm at work and I just put my nose to the grind and I'm looking at the big picture. I'm not worried about anything else but the end result. Like I have the dry cleaning business, and when I just put my head down and I'm picking up clothes, I'm dropping off clothes, I'm meeting clients, I'm doing this. I'm not worried about anything else but that. When I look at the numbers at the end of the month, that's my purpose. Like my purpose is to make sure my family is straight. My purpose is to make sure that my kids are straight. I'm 46, so although I want to be comfortable, it's not about me anymore. It's about my grandkids. You know what I'm saying? So my purpose now is not the fancy cars and the big house and trips and all that. My purpose now is to focus on them. Yes. So I think a lot of times when you talk to the kids, and a lot of kids have kids now. And a lot of kids, because I work at this company called Allstate, a lot of times the kids are like, I'm not worried about any of that anymore. I'm just worried about taking care of myself. He might be 22 and have a kid that's, 2 or 3. But now, his purpose is now not to do anything but to make sure his kid is straight. So I think a lot of times,
You gotta meet them where they are.
you gotta meet them where they are, yes. And you gotta listen. You know what I'm saying? I think like my dad, one of his problems was, he would listen, he would say, this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be, and not let me be an independent thinker. So my son now is 22, and I've always had to be an independent thinker, and I've always told him, you should always be humble, whatever you do. So I think that when you're humble, it kind of leads towards your purpose, and not towards your ego. Yeah, I think that's about it.
You want to close this out?
Hold up, I still haven't told you.
I mean, you're the host.
Hey, man, so I still want to get.
I guess in my experience, like, I deal with a lot of youth. I was in schools and glad we met with the restaurant and our project. I deal with a lot of it. So my biggest problem, is most of the kids have this YOLO mentality. You only live once. F it, I'm just gonna do it. Because they haven't seen better, they don't know any better, they don't know that they do better, because nobody's ever taught them. So, like, that's the problem. And like a solution, my first solution is usually how to teach them how to turn it on and off. So, when you walk in the store, I mean, I do the same thing with people that work here. Even the neighborhood guys that know me from around here, I see it on the walk around, I might even be walking past on the walk, they speak to me, but when you walk in my door, you can put your pants up, you're not going to show your ass. But even in dealing with them, like, so it's not old. You know, when they still come in, they still trying to show. They on FaceTime, what other little kids down there. Oh, y'all still eating down there? And I'm in flight. Like, so they still trying to show that ego, but you gotta show them how to turn it on and off. The second one is from being in the school system. I volunteered to a culinary for about 5 years. So a lot of the youth that I found that I took on and that I took special interest in, nobody else would deal with. Like, oh, you want that's the problem. No, the problem is nobody has invested in this young man. Principal called me once. Mr. Davis, you think you're coming into a session this month? All right, time this month, but I'm gonna see if I can get you. Well, the young man such and such, get this, that, and the third. The problem is nobody else cares. So y'all saying this kid is just don't want to do nothing. No, he's just not being tested. He's not being invested in. He's not being talked to. You didn't want to show him when he needed help. So he couldn't do anything. So now it's his choice to have help because he ain't got nothing else better to do. If you feed that kid showing some love, showing some knowledge, that ego doesn't really matter anymore because it's not. You know, you show them some interest and you show them that you can be the kid that has the money in his pocket to go buy Jordan and not the kid that's walking around with the Jordan. There's a difference. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I do.
All eyes on you.
All right, well, a couple things came to mind, and I was jotting some notes down as everybody was kind of communicating. And I think everybody here has some really great input. And one of the things that I wrote down was that the question that I would ask is, how would your ego be perceived if you was actually on purpose? How many people could you actually touch if you really was purposely touching? Because they said, I think it was it Jim Rome? But I think it's a biblical statement. But anyway, service to many leads to greatness, right? So if you really want to be great, you got to figure out how you can touch more people. How can you really serve more people? Because you might be touching 3,000 on your Instagram, this and that and the third, or whatever the situation is. But how can you leverage that? How can you make sure that you can use that to feed your family? And a lot of times is that ego comes into play when you don't have anything else. And so when we talk about purpose, I think about purpose, and vision came up often in that conversation. And if they don't really have a vision for themselves of 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or 100 years down the road.
YOLO.
Exactly.
You only live once.
Right. And so what's happening is that they don't have a vision of themselves in the future. So they don't conceptualize that. So they're not working towards anything. And so purpose implies that you're working towards something. And if they haven't gotten the vision, you understand, by the examples that they see every day, because they're not seeing, these aren't the examples that's commercialized. These aren't the examples that they're going to see on Fox. You understand? And what happens is that we're not dominating our own image. So even one of the things that I'm going to challenge tonight is that everybody that actually was here tonight, I want everybody to take a moment, because I'm sure Hassan is going to upload this conversation. Let's take this moment to share that, and so that we can show other people, so we can lead with other examples, and we can try to dominate the examples that they have of what a real man is. Because the things that they have now, those concepts aren't serving them. And so we got to look at the images. We got to say, well, how are these images serving them? Because see, it's my opinion and my philosophy that black people need a sales job. You got to sell black people on doing black things that are productive in the community. And so what's happening is, so they're not seeing the productive part, they're seeing the love and hip hop part, they're seeing the ratchetness part, they're seeing the turn up part, they're not seeing the, you know what I mean, we getting together, we have a real conversation on how we want to help the kids around us. And then the last thing I want to say is what I said in the beginning, is that we're not here to organize 45 million. It's impossible. Organize 4 or 5. And that's what Brother Sessions was talking about. If everybody here can touch a handful of kids, then we're going to be doing just fine. But it's just like, but we also had to be those examples, and not just be them and being humble about that. You understand? Because what happens is we're being humble, and they looking at the people that got ego. And we gotta have ego about taking care of our kids, about doing business with black people, about being in a black-owned business and really making it happen. We gotta have ego about that. We gotta be prideful about that and show them that it's pride in being the men that we are. And so they're not just looking outside of us and looking at these other poor examples, and we can be those examples. So those are just a couple things that I mentioned,
All right, are you done? Yeah, I'm good. So, I've heard a lot of people, everybody makes really good points. I would say, for me, when I was younger, I had a problem with people. I had a big problem. I was very concerned about how I looked, how things looked. I think that you need to start looking at where people exist when they do that. I mean, I feel like I kind of missed out. I didn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do, and it can really hurt you. It's better to accomplish and look bad than to look good and to do bad. I mean, I grew up in crack era, in DC. A lot of those guys were dealing. A lot of them made a lot of money because they wanted to look good. But look where it got them. So I would say the best thing is to try to show the kids where they're going to be in the next few years. And a lot of times, if you're somebody who hasn't been where they've been, they're not going to listen because they feel like, oh, you don't know what I've been through. I would say get somebody that's been in their situation that they can relate to. If they can't relate to them, they're just not going to listen. They got to be somebody they can relate to, and that would.
You know what? I gotta say this, and every time it comes up, it kind of gets to me. So I got approached by somebody, right? And they was like, because you're the president of Black Professional Men, what do you know about kids who on Section 8 and why do they need financial literacy? And I was like, I was a kid. My mom was on. I'm not gonna put out that she was on welfare, but my dad had to pay back a welfare bill. All right, so I mean, I understand me living in the projects and all that stuff there, but I mean, my whole point behind all that is that just because I am where I am, this is not where I started.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people they won't understand it because they see where you are. And
Yeah.
Connect the dots. That's why when I look at certain rappers that have come from rags to riches, I'm thinking they're great inspiration. They went and they did everything legitimately after a period of time. Jay-Z's talked to some of these kids that are trying to, get into drugs or whatever. He could at least give them some guidance, like at least try to have a long-term plan. Don't just think that it's going to end with what you just did. Like, it's not. They were listening to him because he's like, okay, this is a success story. He did make it out. So.
Yeah. I mean, my brother, we have this running joke. He'd be like, tomorrow ain't promised. I like, tomorrow don't came 40,000 times. I mean, what you gonna do? At some point, you gotta prepare for it.
I wanted to just bring up one last thing. I wanted as a parent, as a parent, and watching the lives of 5 young people, manifest and take shape and to be a participant in that process. I'm also going to just remind you that some of the things, the seeds that you sown, are not going to be obviously sown today. You understand? So you'll see the harvest, and just for the simple fact that you're being consistent and you're being the olive,
Absolutely.
and not the weed. Right?
It's been a 20-year run anyway. So I have young kids who used to carry my records to the club as a DJ back in when I was 18 and 19. Seeing them in their 20s, 30s, pushing 30, saying, Mr. T, man, if it wasn't for you, I would have been in the street. And so that's a reminder, like, you don't see this, he got his business. And I'm just like, man, you came a long way. But, right, you're right. You don't see you don't see the manifest immediately. Right. And I, for me, I still look like I'm in my 20s, so I'm relatable because I'm in the music. I know the music. So I feel like that piece is valid, and I'm the one that's going to continue to do it. However, I'm still talking about the folks that's not children anymore. We're really talking about my main portion about the ego versus purpose was from 18 to 35.
So, Kendrick,
Can I still say that? Unfortunately, I got to run, but I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Chef Joe, thank you for connecting, brother, and made this possible. For those who don't know me, I'm Ray. They call me Chef Ziggy. I'm the owner here. And I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. Some of you know me in the room, some of you don't. First time, brother, I remember you said that. Thanks for coming. We appreciate you. Go and sing some more. But that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you for having us.
all right, Ray. One thing,